This is the EVP Podcast. It's been a little bit, but your boys are back, folks. It's the EVP Podcast with your host, Ghosty.
And I'm Beaker.
Welcome back, guys, and welcome back, Beaker, from your little vacation break.
My runaway.
Your runaway.
My little meltdown, and I decided to run away to California.
It was well deserved. It was
I
your
was
birthday.
only going to stay 2 days, and I ended up staying 5.
It happens when you're on vacation and you don't have anything else to do.
Nice having some freedom there for a little bit.
Isn't it?
I was like, yeah, I'll come back Friday. We can record when I get home, and then you can go to Vegas the next day. And then things changed.
Yeah, I didn't even go to Vegas. But you had fun.
You didn't go to Vegas?
No, I didn't end up going to Vegas. I thought my steak was going to have eggs, and I had to stay home for that. And
good thing I didn't call you, because I thought about calling you to see if you wanted to grab lunch when I was passing through Vegas.
Oh, shit.
I'm like, no, I just want to get home. I have to work tomorrow.
Yeah, I wasn't even there.
Well, it's a good thing I didn't call you then.
But guess where we are going on this episode?
Guess where I went, though?
Where did you go?
I went to four different cemeteries.
Yes, I did want to hear about this. Go on. Go on.
So the first cemetery, so we did like one cemetery on Friday, and we did 3 more on Saturday. The first cemetery, they're like, well, do you want to go to this cemetery? You can see this celebrity's grave. Or she's like, we can go to this one, and we can see this celebrity's grave. And I'm like, you know what? I'm like, my intuition kicked in. For whatever reason, I'm like, let's go to this cemetery. So the first one we went to is actually where Sharon Tate.
Okay, and I saw that picture. And
from what I understand, there is a giant monument. I don't understand it. It's there. Like, okay. I don't have to understand that. From my understanding, the reason why this giant monument thing was built is Roman Polanski was Sharon Tate's husband at the time of her passing, and he built this like elaborate monument for her that has like this altar and it's like this cave system. It's really cool.
Oh shit!
And I actually, when I was walking through it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure there's a spirit here. So I actually took a video and sent it to Brandy, and she like paused the video and highlighted, because I like in the video I'm like, and there's a spirit right here. And when she watched it and commented back, she's like, yeah, there's a spirit here. And then she told me there was actually 2 spirits in the video. So there was one hanging out, which is not uncommon for a cemetery. Like, you get spirits, right?
And plus, with it being like a cave system mausoleum type thing, I'm pretty sure lots of spirits want to hang out in there.
Yeah. So, and she's not buried too far from Bela Lugosi.
I saw your picture of that too.
You didn't see all the pictures. I found so many celebrities. So we did go to one where we found Judith Brassey.
I don't even know who that is.
You will as soon as I tell you.
Okay. Tell me more.
So there was the little girl that did the voice of Ducky.
Oh, yes, I did hear about this story.
And she also did the voice in All Dogs Go to Heaven. I believe that was her last movie.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you that don't know the story of Judith, she got big real quick, and her father, I believe, was Hungarian, and he was kind of having a hard time with the fact that his daughter was like blowing up and getting all this money, and he was having a hard time providing for his family. And I know he got really into alcohol, and there was one day he got really drunk, and he basically killed his daughter and his wife, and then set the house on fire. And she's only 10 years old. Like, I sent you the picture of Carrie Fisher's and Debbie Reynolds. Michael Clark Duncan's just around the corner from her.
Oh, nice.
We found the kid that played Chekhov in the new Star Trek movies. We found
did he just pass then?
2016, actually.
Oh, okay.
They found him outside of his apartment, pinned between his Jeep and a wall.
Ooh.
We found Mel Blanc, the voice of Bugs Bunny and all the Looney Tunes back in the day. Vampira, we found hers.
Oh, nice.
But, so we did kind of go around, like I said, 4 different cemeteries, found a bunch of celebrities. Mm-hmm. We did find Heather O'Rourke.
I didn't remember that name.
Carol Ann.
Okay, Carol
from Poltergeist.
Okay, yeah.
And that same cemetery, Debbie, I can't remember her name. I'd have to look up the pictures. She played the older sister of Heather in Poltergeist.
Okay.
I think we've briefly talked about some of the poltergeist cursed.
Yeah, we have.
But Heather O'Rourke had this like rare medical condition that was misdiagnosed, and she passed away during the filming of the third one. The Deborah that played her older sister in the first movie, her boyfriend went crazy and like stabbed her to death, on top of like all the people getting sick and stuff. And this is going to tie us into our topic because of supposed curses on movies. We won't go too much into the poltergeist, but we are going to go into a supposed curse on what we're actually going to be talking about, which is...
It's the Demon House.
The Demon House.
So this is in Gary, Indiana. This is the house that Zak Bagans bought and demolished. And...
Spoilers.
Well... 2018, there was a whole documentary about this. So if you haven't seen it yet,
a whole ass documentary.
Sorry for spoiling it. Yeah. So this goes back in 2014. This story got publicized and kind of blew up nationwide.
Was it 14? I thought it started sooner than that.
Well, it started sooner than that, but 2014, like 2011 is when it started.
2011.
2014 is when the stories were publicized.
Gotcha.
So... they call this the House of 200 Demons, or the Demon House. And it's an alleged haunting and demonic possession which occurred in Gary, Indiana, back starting in 2011. So this mom, her 3 kids, and her mom, her name was Latoya Ammons, and her mom was Rosa Campbell, and then she had the 3 kids, which were 7, 9, and 12. And they moved in this house in Gary, Indiana, and then days after moving in, they started having weird things happen. One of them being these black flies that kept showing up, and they would swarm and they would kill them all. And the next thing they know, they would swarm again. And that was just really strange, they thought. But, you know,
what time of the year was this?
This was because it was December, and it was, it was winter.
That's important to know because you usually don't see flies in winter.
Right. Yeah. I forgot to mention that. This was December, and it didn't make sense that there were flies and there were swarms of them, and they were killing them, and they would just keep coming back.
Campbell, the same with Amityville. That was thing took place too, like December, January in the winter, and they kept getting flies as well.
In that one room, yeah.
Not very often, or not very common, that you're going to find flies in the wintertime. It's just not the season for them.
Right. Campbell, which was the grandmother, she was hearing footsteps in the basement, and she was hearing doors creaking. And then later, she alleged to have witnessed a shadowy figure of a man pacing in the living room and found boot prints on the floor, like wet boot prints. And then on multiple occasions...
Like they've been walking through water?
Like they were wet.
Or something?
Probably water. I think probably just wet footprints and then walking through the house. So it was leaving wet boot prints.
And there was no water running or anything in it?
Not that I read about. Like I didn't see anything about there being raining outside or there being water anywhere.
But it was wintertime.
Right. Yep. And then on multiple occasions, the sound of footsteps ascending the basement stairs and creaking of the door to the kitchen would just leave everyone pretty scared. The grandma also claimed that she was choked by an unknown force.
Okay.
So it didn't elaborate into that, but it just mentioned that. So the 12-year-old daughter, she claimed to have levitated above her bed while she was unconscious during a sleepover she had with her friend. And so this was March 10th of 2012, around 2 a.m. She began screaming. And the grandma, they said they all ran into her room and discovered that she was floating above her bed. And this is what the grandma thought. I thought, what's going on? Why is this happening? That was an official quote. She began to pray and told everyone else around her to start praying for her. And then she finally descended and regained consciousness, but she didn't remember anything. Unlike their visitors who couldn't forget what they saw and refused to ever return. So scared her friend away. Her friend never wanted to come back to her house.
Well, it's if I see someone levitating when I'm...
I don't think I'd ever come back too. That's
11 years
crazy.
old. I'd be like, you know what? We had a good run.
But there was, I don't know if this, her friend has ever said anything, like if this has ever been documented by her friend or anything like that. But she's also probably underage, so. The 7-year-old grandson would occasionally sit in the closet listening to an invisible entity discussing what it was like to die. Another time, he was ejected from a bathroom. He allegedly had his eyes roll into the back of his head and was growling, saying, "It's time to die, and I will kill you." That's kind of scary. This little kid.
Some wicked cheese dogs.
The family ended up reaching out to their physician and on April 19th, 2012. And when they visited the house, the supposed haunting, he noted, was the behavior was delusional and which triggered someone from his office to contact police. So when they went to visit, they said that they were just making this all up. And so someone from the doctor's office called the police on them. And this is what the doctor said. He said, 20 years and I've never heard anything like that in my life. After the police ended up arriving, the children were taken to the hospital. The older boy was described as acting rationally, while the younger boy screamed and thrashed. So, like, I don't know. This doctor thought he was faking it, but this kid just kept, he was still being controlled or acting like he was being controlled. And then the DCFS was alerted to the family, and DCFS believed that the children were performing for their mom. However, Valerie Washington, she was the DCS manager assigned to the case. She told police that Ammons underwent a psychiatric evaluation and was deemed to be of sound mind. That the DCS personnel had also allegedly witnessed the youngest boy walking up the wall backwards. So this was something that this DCS worker, she said that she's still going through going through treatments. She's seeing a therapist for this after seeing that. She ended up quitting. She quit her job after this, and she said she was doing this for years.
So I'm curious because obviously they don't have footage of this kid walking up the wall.
They don't have footage of it,
but I wonder if the kid was holding on to somebody or something.
Yes. He was holding the hand of his grandma, from what they were saying. So he was holding this grandma's hand and saying that he was able to. This is what the doctors were saying, trying to make sense of it all, was that he was pushing off the grandma, which caused the force to, use his feet to walk up the wall. But the amount of force you'd have to push on that, you think that old lady would sit there and take that force and push back, or she would walk backwards?
Tiny 7-year-old kid. I used to do it when I was younger, just climb up the walls. Trying
to make sense of it. Yes, I can see where you're coming from, and trying to make sense of it. That would make sense
at this point.
But from what the DCS manager, who said this was coming out of her mouth, she was actually interviewing with Zak Bagans and she was saying how she's seen a lot of things where she had to deal with kids abuse, seeing a lot of abuse type situations, and how hard that is. She said after seeing what she saw there, that made her quit her job. She's going through therapy and everything for it.
Okay.
And she's been doing it for years and years. So trying to rationalize it, yeah, I see where the doctors are coming from and how you can think that. But for this person who went through what they went through and saw what they saw, they're traumatized.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
I don't think she could do cocaine with her position.
Probably not. Good old Rick James. You want to smoke with your old boy Rick James?
Rick James, bitch.
It's entirely possible that he could have been pushing up against her the thing is, I have a nephew that's 7 years old. That kid weighs up maybe 80 pounds, if that. He's skinny as crap. He's tiny. I could see him. I'm like, my mom would probably be about the same age as this grandma. Like, I could see him maybe doing that. Maybe if it was someone younger, a little bit stronger. That's kind of where the doubt would come in, being that it depends on how strong the grandma was. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's entirely possible that that's what he was doing. So using her pressure.
A second time, this is what she saw, and this was in the report she filed. Washington, this is the name of the workers. Washington wrote, she and a nurse, Willie Lee Walker, were in a room examining the 9-year-old son when the boy got a weird grin on his face. Washington told police the child glided backward on the floor, wall, and ceiling, and an evil influence could be responsible. He walked up the wall, flipped over, and stood there. Walker, the nurse, later corroborated in an interview, there's no way he could have done that. Both Washington and Walker ran from the room. This kid was not himself when he did that, said Walker. He didn't know what was going on. That was crazy. I was like, everybody got to go. So in this situation, nobody was holding this kid.
And that's more believable.
And he wasn't walking. He glided. So this was the second case, and this time the grandma and mom was not in the room.
They're all on drugs.
Everyone's doing drugs.
Everyone's doing drugs. And then the 2011s in Indiana.
So there was police that were getting called to the house constantly because of the weird events that were happening. And this one police captain who was on the force for 37 years at this time, his name was Charles Austin. He believed in the paranormal activity that was going on in the house. And there ended up being a photo that was published by the Indianapolis Star that claimed to show a shadowy figure when nobody was home. But I think that was proven to be some kind of an app somebody probably took and just added it to it.
I think they say that in the documentary.
In the documentary, yeah.
I think even Zach said it was proven to be like a
from an app. Yeah. According to Austin, officers who visited the home had their recording devices and other equipment malfunction. One detective heard a faint "hey" whispered on some audio he recorded at the scene. After that visit, Austin said his garage door wouldn't open and the seat in his Infiniti started moving even though he wasn't touching the controls. And then, he's saying, it seems to happen a lot. A lot of people were experiencing weird things after visiting this house as well.
So many people had things that happened to them. I don't know how much you have in the notes, but a lot of this stuff just seems super coincidental.
Yeah, a lot of it seems super. But this one happened to him leaving the area.
Leaving the house.
Yeah, so
while he's still there.
Right.
Okay. This makes a little more sense.
Yeah, things happen to people after they left, like weeks and months afterwards. I'm throwing that out the window.
So, do we have like a list of
all the stuff? No, I didn't make a list.
So there was one gentleman that like a month or so after visiting the house ended up with cancer. There was the main chief of police that they had. He was leaving somewhere and he slipped on the ice and ended up in the ER. Those two, like, to me, is just very coincidental.
Who knows how many days after?
On the ice. Yeah, right. And like I said, if you get cancer like a month or two after, like that
has nothing to do with. Yeah, he probably had that for years.
Zach himself said that he has to wear prism glasses now, and his eyesight is permanently messed up because of the house.
Sounds fishy.
They had a doctor come in doing part of the investigation with him. In the documentary, they mentioned that he started having different organ failure. I found something that said that in the guy's GoFundMe, it just said that his gallbladder was going bad and it was causing his bladder to like back up and not send urine. So they list all of these like different things that happened. There was the one caseworker that they touched the oil.
Yeah,
and her hand turned white, and then she got in a motorcycle accident.
And so they talk about this thing where they were doing things in the house or trying to. So I'll get to this part real quick because they did try to get help from the church.
Way ahead, but
yeah. So the lady Ammons and her mom, they contacted a clairvoyant who told them to move out of the house, and that just wasn't possible. And she also told them that the house was possessed with over 200 demonic entities. So with them not being able to move because they were strapped financially, they're not going to move. So they ended up going to a church, and they contacted the church, who told them that the house was possessed by spirits as well, and that they followed advice to clean it with ammonia and bleach before using oil to mark all their doors and windows with crosses. Ammons then anointed the kids' hands, feet, and foreheads with the oil. Then they finally ended up hiring Father Michael Magano to perform an exorcism. And he interviewed the family on April 22nd of 2012 and concluded they were being tormented by demons. He eventually performed 3 exorcisms, 2 in English and 1 in Latin. One exorcism was performed on LaToya Ammons. So yeah, they ended up doing going that route. And one of the times, I think while they were doing an exorcism, they said that there was like some kind of weird oil dripping down the blinds.
Yeah.
And looking at the house from the documentary and how the time of year that they were looking at things, And they actually, while investigating, were saying that, oh, they're having oil, like stuff dripping from the blinds as well.
Now the thing is like in the lost footage show on Netflix of this documentary, they were digging stuff up underneath the stairs, and the guy was also talking about how when the oil was on the blinds for the Ammon family, it was also coming down the bottom of the stairs. Like the oil was on the stairs as well.
Right.
The oil on the blinds, it almost looked more like just condensation coming from the window. Because again, when Zach is doing this investigation, it's in dead ass winter.
It's winter, but even when this was going on, even in April at night, it's going to be cold.
Yeah.
And it is very humid there in Indiana. Cold and humid, and with them inside the house and the body heat, it's going to create condensation on the walls and windows, especially if the windows are like not, triple or double pane.
Yeah.
So
I'm looking at this house.
I don't think it was double pane.
Not double pane.
And so you're going to get condensation, especially if the blinds are closed. You're going to see condensation coming on that inside of the blinds and then coming on to the inside part of the house. So that's most likely what they saw. And then if they're in the basement where you got that cold ground,
yeah,
and there's a bunch of people doing stuff in there, being all hot and sweaty, digging and shit, they're going to create more condensation on the wall.
Hot and sweaty.
But yeah, I don't think this oil stuff had anything to do with paranormal. I think it was just condensation.
They were touching it too,
oily because it was a dirty ass house.
Probably. Because you mix water and dust, it gets a little oily.
Well, yeah, especially if you see white residue. It could be like part of the paint. Like, could be the lead in the paint coming out. So eventually in 2012, they moved to Indianapolis and said that the events that were happening to them had stopped at that point. And the landlord who owned the house put it up for sale, and people were sending all these messages to Zak Bagans about this house coming up for sale and the things that happened there, because it was all over the news. And he hadn't even heard of this at this time. So he ended up just buying it sight unseen. He just threw the money at it and bought it, because he's like $35,000.
Yeah.
He probably makes that in less than a season. I mean, he probably makes like 10 times out of the season. So after buying that in 2014, they did a lot of investigating there, checking it out, and then decided in 2016 to demolish the house. So he ended up making this documentary of the house while he owned it. I mean, he still owns the property, but the house is now no longer there. And this was a quote from Zach. He said, "Something was inside that house that had the ability to do things that I have never seen before. Things that others carrying the highest form of credibility couldn't explain either." Bagans said there was something there that was very dark, yet highly intelligent and powerful. And after seeing some of these, the investigations of the house, what do you think?
I think it's a house.
It is a house. It has a foundation and everything.
I mean, it was a house at the time. Some of the stories seem a little far-fetched. But they did find a family that supposedly lived there before the Ammon family. And they talked about some of their experiences, and they had similar things. It was a similar type of family situation. It was a mom with three kids, but it was 2 girls and a boy in that family.
And they also had her mom that was living there too. That the mom moved in first, and then she moved in later.
So they had experienced similar things, like dogs randomly barking and just whisperings throughout the house. Now, Zach bought the house. At the point, the house had been empty. Well, the Ammon family had been gone for like 2 years, and some squatters were living there.
Yeah.
When they spoke with the squatters, they had said they had not experienced any activity whatsoever, which is not uncommon, because you look at like the Perrin family. After they sold the house, the next couple families that lived there said they never experienced anything. The Amityville house, no one since the Lutz has said they've experienced anything.
Right.
So it's not uncommon for whatever is tormenting a family to just be like, I'm done for right now. And I mean, these things are infinite. They don't have a timeline. So for what seems like, 20, 30 years for us could be like 20, 30 seconds for them. I don't know how time works, but it's for them. It's just like, I'm taking a quick break and then I'll be back at it. So what I found interesting is the grandma of the Ammon family that lived in the house before Zak bought it. Their other grandma, the one that didn't live there, said the same thing, that they were making it up, and their whole family, like the moms, the siblings, and everything, were telling them to stop making this stuff up. They didn't believe in any of it.
Well, the family prior to the Ammons, they said that they didn't really experience much anything really. They said they didn't really experience anything, but she just was afraid of the basement. She never went down there and was just avoided it.
Was it that family, or was it the Ammon family where one of the brothers that
it was that family?
In
so
the
that
basement was murdered, not at the house, but
no, he got murdered, but he was living there in one of the rooms
in the basement.
And, yeah, I think there was a room somewhere down there in the basement. But yeah, so he was living down there in that room, was murdered. But I think he said he was mentioning before being murdered that things like he was experiencing weird things.
Like one of them was having a dream saying that like a family member was going to die.
I think that was the mom of that family.
Yeah, and then the brother ended up being murdered.
Yeah.
What I thought was interesting at the very beginning of the documentary, Zak was like arguing with the producer because he had procured the rights to make the documentary, but somehow didn't get the rights to make a movie. And as I'm like watching this documentary and I'm watching that part, I get a text from you and you're like, "Hey, there's a movie coming out on this." It's like interesting.
So, yeah, Zak was not able to interview the Ammon family. They didn't want to talk to him when he got there after he purchased the house because they were in the process with making a contract for movie rights about their story.
Yeah, the brother of Ammon mom, what's her name?
Yeah, so they were like staying together or something.
Yeah, they were in an apartment. Zak did some creepy cyber stalking on a couple of people in this documentary, in my opinion. Found out where the Ammons lived because they didn't want to be contacted. They weren't returning his calls, so he found out where they lived and drove to their house. I did ask politely if they wanted to be interviewed. They declined.
Well, it was funny. Instead of declining, they just never came back to the door.
No, the brother did. The brother...
No, he was saying how it was all... Oh, yeah. But he said, hold on, wait, I'll go get her.
Yeah, and then
he never came back. And then they were just standing outside saying, this is bullshit. And then I think they were leaving, and he came running out and was like, hey, and started telling them more stuff about the place and was like, yeah, she didn't want to talk to you guys because, you guys were offering peanuts. She's trying to make millions of dollars, and you guys ain't offering shit. Pretty much, they probably offered her maybe like $5,000 to $10,000 or something, and they were like, "No, we're gonna get millions," which they ended up getting $65 million from Netflix.
Yeah.
So he didn't get to. He did not get to.
Alone. It reminds me so much of the Lutz family. Like, how much is this actually true, and how much did you make up so you could sell your story?
Do I think that they experienced some things? I highly believe they experienced some things. Do I think they exaggerated the shit out of some things? Yes, I do. But having credible witnesses like the DCFS officer and a nurse witness it and both say what they saw.
Well, and the priest.
And then one of the crew members of Zak Bagans ended up going crazy. And they ended up having to let him go for that investigation.
Like they said, Zak will say right at the beginning of this documentary that the movie's cursed. Yeah, because a lot of people either quit or fired from the show. A lot of people got sick or afflicted, like we talked about a little bit earlier. He had several cameramen or people that would just quit, but there was one cameraman in particular. His name was Adam, if I remember correctly. He just went nutso.
So when you're watching the footage of him going crazy, you're just like thinking he's having a mental breakdown. That's what I was thinking. That dude was having just a mental breakdown. He probably went through a lot, maybe personally or something. But in the other stuff we were watching with him, and he was kind of talking about how, the guys have known him for years and have never seen him act like that. Yeah. And then he was telling them that he saw like some weird figure with a goat head standing in the elevator. He said all these weird shit. And to go along with what he was saying, was it Billy? He ended up ordering a lie detector test for him.
Yeah, that was on the lost footage on YouTube.
YouTube has lost footage. You can find the Demon House on Prime right now. It used to be on Discovery Plus, but now it's on Prime.
It's on Prime right now.
And then the extra footage is on YouTube.
Just, go to YouTube and search for Demon House lost footage, and you'll find it.
And on that one,
that had way more information and a lot more cool stuff on it.
Yeah, they showed a lot of investigating, and the evidence they were getting on the investigation was badass. But where was I going earlier? Shit,
so they did the polygraph with Adam.
Oh yeah, the polygraph.
They asked him all of these questions, like, did you
see that? Did you say this? Did you?
Because he like threw up blood. He felt like someone was stabbing his stomach. He was throwing up blood. He went all crazy. He said he saw this demon goat figure thing in the elevator, and like all these questions they asked him, and everything came back that he was telling the truth.
Right.
And the thing is like with a polygraph, it's hard to do, but they can be tricked, because if you remain calm and if you absolutely believe what you're saying to be true, it will come back true. Whether or not he's lying, I don't know. I don't think he is, but
right. I mean, if he was lying about any of it, I think if he was, especially with all the questions they asked, some of it would come back like inconclusive or a lie, you know?
Right. But the thing is like if you believe so much into what you think you saw, whether or not it actually happened, if you believe it enough, you'll get a not lying response on a polygraph.
Right. You know, and the things that he was saying yes to were like, did you say these words? Yes. Did you see this? Yes.
So what he said was, when he was like out in the hallway, he kept saying he needed to go back to the house. He needed to go back to the house. And he was like egging this thing on that he thought
that he couldn't see.
Yeah. He's like, if I'm not supposed to, or if I'm supposed to go to the house or something, he's like, then I want you to keep me from getting into the elevator. And he said at that point, the elevator doors opened about 2 inches, and that's when he saw the demon figure standing inside the elevator. Like it opened about 2 inches and then stopped, which is not normal for an elevator.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, he went all nuts. So they ended up firing him from the project.
Yeah.
And then he got like 666 tattooed on his hands, and he just like, I guess, went completely off the wall. And it's because he's cursed.
Yeah, because they think the house is cursed.
The show is cursed. The whole documentary is cursed. Everyone's cursed.
Well, one of the weird things that happened too, so the family that had lived there before the Ammons, they came in, like he invited them in the house to walk around and look at things. The kids, I don't think that they don't remember much about it because they were younger.
Yeah.
And after they had visited, the mom called, like, I think it was 3 weeks after that.
3 days after.
I thought it was 3 weeks.
3 days after
Okay.
when they got the call. It was 3 weeks later when they actually met up.
You're right. Yes. So 3 days later, she calls Zach and is freaking out because her daughter had tried to commit suicide by overdosing on pills and then stabbing her wrists.
Yep.
And she doesn't remember doing it. They ended up doing an exorcist with Father Magano. And do you remember what happened with that?
So they're at the church. Zach did pull her aside before the exorcism, did a quick little interview with her, and that's when he was asking her if she remembered any of that. And she's like, I don't remember. I guess she was yelling and swearing at her mom, telling her mom that she was going to kill her. She didn't remember doing any of that. And Zach's like, is this how you normally act to your mom? She's like, no, I've never treated my mom this way before. And what I think is interesting is and I've seen stuff similar to this. I've never performed an exorcism because I'm not authorized by the Catholic Church. But I have helped like clear energy off of people. But while the guy was saying the prayer, the girl just like her head dropped and she just slumped. It was like almost like strings were cut, and she just kind of like passed out. And I've seen this before when I'm doing energy work on people, or we've had cases where Brandy has had an incident with being kind of manipulated. And I've seen like priesthood blessings done and similar response where she just falls like a rag doll. This is what the girl did when the guy was doing the exorcism, saying the prayers. As the girl just kind of slumped in the chair and felt like, whatever was controlling her just kind of was gone. And that to me, I believe something did influence her.
Something probably
just
attached
the way
to her.
that she acted in that I've personally seen stuff like that happen before. So
yeah, I think there was a lot of bad stuff in that house.
There was a lot of bad stuff in the house, and I'm not saying that the house isn't haunted. That one family, the Ammon family, I kind of want to lump them in the category of the Lutz family, where it's just a cash grab. But I don't think it's in the same aspect as the Lutz, where I don't think they went in knowing that it was haunted like the Lutz did.
Right. I think the Lutz went in there purposely going for a cash grab without having experienced anything.
I think George Lutz did, because he knew about the Feo murders. I think in this house,
this was a surprise haunting, and they're capitalizing on it.
They weren't planning on it being haunted. They didn't know it was haunted. They didn't know that apparently that there was like satanic rituals that were done in the basement. For some reason, and here's the weird thing is like when you go in the basement, right? Everything's cemented except for this little corner underneath the stairs where it's just dirt. And when they were digging through it, they found all sorts of like children's socks and
they found a children's sock, like a press-on nail.
That was important for some reason.
I don't remember.
They were super.
But they said that it was like some kind of ritual that was performed with these items and buried there, and they had to get them out. I don't understand what it was all about, though.
I know they pulled a bunch of them up in the lost footage, and Zak buried them all again, and everyone's like, "Why?"
Yeah, he goes back down to the basement.
He like sneaks past everybody when no one's
just
looking,
reburies it all.
Buries everything. And then he's like, "Yeah, I buried it," and everyone's like,
"Oh, the priest got all pissed off too." He's like,
"Priest and the medium."
Yeah, they're like, "What?
What the hell did you do that for?"
Like, we just spent all that time digging it out.
He's like, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I just felt like doing it."
And then so they go to re-dig everything back up, and they couldn't find the press-on nail, and that was important.
That was important for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I was like, the person that buried the stuff probably lost.
They probably didn't even bury that nail. It probably fell off their bougie ass. But
because everything was like dirty and beat up, this nail looked like it was brand new and clean.
Well, it's because it's like some fake ass plastic nail. That's why.
Well, it's an acrylic nail, but still,
the dirt just falls right off of it. It glides off.
Wow. Yeah, that's how it works. But the weird thing is like there is stuff in there. Like, I don't think that it happened to the extent that the Ammons said it did, but I'm sure that they had experiences.
Oh yeah.
The house is haunted as fuck. There is, I don't believe 200. For some reason I kept, when we were watching the video, what I kept saying to you, I'm like 7. I just keep hearing 7 in my head. I feel like my personal theory is that there was 7 entities, most of them not human, in the house. There might have been 1 or 2 human spirits, but most of what was in there was non-human. Were they summoned there from a curse or something? According to the shit on the spirit box, yes. That was a trip. So
yeah, the spirit box session was intelligent as fuck and responsive as fuck.
Like right immediately when they asked questions.
And like it corroborated with what they were asking, made a lot of sense. And it was even like they were speaking with sarcasm sometimes.
Yeah, they asked, like, they were convinced that,
they're like, what's in this dirt? And it goes, dirt?
So they were convinced, like, the ex-boyfriend of Mrs. Ammon was the one that, like, buried stuff and put a curse on the family. And they asked that, and the spirit box immediately said no. They heard footsteps up above them at one point, and they're like, who's up there? And it's like, me.
Yeah, they said me.
And it's like, what's your name? And it's like, Matt.
Yeah.
And then it like said Zak's name a couple times.
Well, they were like, "What's in the dirt?" And it's all dirt. And I think it said Zak right after that. And I don't think they caught on to that. Maybe they meant like, "Oh, we're gonna bury Zak." Maybe. Interesting. I didn't think about that until just now.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, they were getting very responsive voices, which were pretty badass.
This is a lot of stuff that's in a lot of the activity you'll find is on the lost footage on YouTube.
Yeah,
in the documentary itself, there is some stuff. They do have Zak do an overnight lockdown in the house. They put plywood up over all the windows, and they actually on the main door itself they put plywood over it, and then they screwed it down so he couldn't get out of the house. So he's in there by himself. He's freaking out. He's like, I don't want to go full lights out. He's texting like Billy or whatever, and he's like, yeah, I don't blame you. Now, when this first came out in 2018, I did watch it with the Finlays and Brandy, and there is a thing that happens in the end of the documentary. Zak is sitting on the bed, and he keeps yelling at something to stay away from him, stay back. And then you hear a growl, and he jumps. And then he has another camera that's like not focused for some reason, and you can see something running like down the hall.
Oh shit!
And I don't know whether or not that they'd snuck somebody in without us knowing, and that was an actual person running down the hall. But from what I understand, the growl that he heard that spooked him was legit. That was an actual entity like growling at him. So which makes me think that whatever that blurry ass camera caught running down the hall was also an entity.
So there's another clip where he's in the basement. There's a camera pointed at the basement entranceway. You just hear him scream, and you see him run out of he shoots up the basement stairs and then runs out of there, like collapsing and screaming.
Oh yeah.
When they replay the footage, what he said he saw these red glowing eyes come out towards him, and it freaked him out. And at the same time, when he saw that and freaked out, when they replayed the footage, you hear something hissing at him.
Yes.
And I don't think he really heard that at first because
I think they got it back later when they reviewed the video.
Yeah, and yeah, you can hear that thing hissing, and there's nothing on him that he's holding or whatever that would create a hissing sound, right. So you know it's not him, and it goes along with what he's witnessing at the moment. So that's, that actually does play along together, and that is pretty.
I mean, there's a couple times like we were watching some of the video before we started recording. You hear like a kid screaming, and I'm thinking maybe it's outside because we're sitting in the living room and it's someone like in the apartments next to us. And then they start talking about the scream on the show, and I'm like, wait, that was not outside. Like it was loud, was legit loud, like in the show, that I thought it was outside. There was another point when I was watching some of it at home, and I heard a woman talking, like a little kid talking almost, and I thought it was one of my nieces that was upstairs. And then they start talking about it in the show too, and I was like, what the shit? Like some of the stuff that is in the documentary, like you hear these voices talking. I didn't realize it was part of the show at first. Again, I did watch it like in 2018, but it's been like, math is hard, 7 years.
Yeah.
6 years since I've watched it. So I just assumed it was someone in my house or, like your neighbor or whatever. And then when they start talking about it on the show, I was like, wait, that was in the show? Like it was that clear.
Yeah, they have some really good EVPs in this documentary. And there was another one that I was hearing something. You couldn't hear it. But when they were also in the basement and they were asking how many spirits.
Well, see, I could hear it.
Well, you could hear the noise.
It sounds like it growled.
So I was hearing that at first. Because just hearing it.
Different.
But then I started hearing the pronunciations after hearing it a few times.
Because they asked how many spirits were there.
Yeah, they asked how many spirits were there. And at first I was hearing everyone. And then I was hearing, okay, maybe it's either anyone or everyone. But I'm hearing that pronunciation. It's happening.
You're like, I can hear them saying words, and I'm like, bro, that's just a growl.
Yeah, you were just hearing the growl,
there was something there.
But that's what I heard when I first heard it, was just a weird sound.
Yeah.
And then when I paid attention, I could hear the words coming through.
There was definitely something there.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying. They didn't capture anything. They just said like inaudible. What did they say? It was like they couldn't read. They couldn't understand it. That's what this
inaudible. All they heard was the growl too.
Yeah, they said something was there, but I could hear. I don't know why.
It was one of those like they didn't realize it was there until they went back and reviewed the audio.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't hear it when it happened. But there are some of the things that, like they said, the woman's voice and the scream, like they heard that. I heard that, and like I said, I thought it was someone like living at my house or your neighbor or whatever.
When the family that lived there before the Ammons were walking through the house, they were all mic'd up. And on one of the mics on the family, you end up getting an EVP that comes through and that says, "Let's go, LaToya."
Yeah.
And that was clear as shit. And LaToya being the name of the Ammon's mom. So they've already moved out and they're not there anymore. But that voice said her name like that, LaToya. Which was, oh yeah, run LaToya.
Run LaToya.
Run LaToya. That was badass.
So without a doubt, this place is haunted as fuck. Well,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know now because
now
the house down.
I mean, with the house not there anymore, there could be portals actually.
There could still spirits be wandering the grounds. There has been reports of people still going there apparently and doing satanic rituals. What I think is interesting is you have these cops that, like, during the filming of the documentary, one of the neighbors called Zak and said someone's trying to break into your house. Cops are called. Zak goes rushing back. I think the burglar was gone at that point, but the cops refused to go even up the sidewalk towards the house. They would stay on. They were on the road.
Yeah, and they were just spotlighting it. And they're like,
we're not going in that house. Like they all refused to go. The cops. I mean, it was in police reports about how like haunted this place is.
So
and how
a lot
none
of
the cops wanted to go there at
a
all.
lot of cops kept going, had to go back there because a lot of weird shit was happening, and they were calling the cops up because of weird things happening, and they'd go check things out. Nothing was there. You know, they couldn't find anything, and so they would end up. The cops would even be like, "Yeah, that place is haunted as shit."
Yeah, we're not going back.
So yeah, I 100% think that there were things going on there. I think that the Ammons ended up, you know, trying to make millions off it, which they did. And sorry to say, but we just watched the Netflix movie, and it fucking sucks.
We watched most of the Netflix movie.
There was like a half hour left, and we couldn't do it.
I just looked at you. I was falling asleep. You were falling asleep.
Yeah, I had to sit up and forward because I was dying.
I just like, it was so over the top.
They made out the Ammon's mom to be this alcoholic, abusing mom, foul mouth, just talking all this shit,
beating the shit out of neighbor kids because they picked on her son,
beating her own kids, beating neighbor kids, yelling at her mom, talking shit to everybody.
Yeah, I don't think that individual was like that at all.
No,
I almost like I was telling you, I'm like, it's almost like the mom was just like, "Hey, I've always wanted to be a badass in real life, so can you do that in the movie and then go over the top?"
I bet you she probably was a bitch to one of the producers. And they said, "You know what, bitch? You deserve this."
Yeah, it was so I don't even know. Like Glenn Close played her mom.
Yeah, that was weird. That was really weird because this whole family is a black family. The mom, the grandma, the kids, and then in the movie they have casted Glenn Close as the grandma, and she's doing a southern accent and everything. It's kind of, I mean, she's not playing a black person, but. She kind of in person. I don't know.
They even use the line, and it's like, "You're down with the us, but until it's time to actually be down with us, and then you're just a white bitch." And
something like that.
It was one of the lines. I'm not saying all the words in there, but like yeah, when you're down with us until it's time to actually be down with us, and then you're just white.
Yeah, and so none of that happened in real life because the grandma was black.
I'm like this. Yeah, the grandma was black. I'm just like this shit's like super.
So it was just over the top and adding all this extra story that didn't need to be added. Like none of
that.
The
movie is from what I read on IMDb.com is it's a feel good come to Jesus. Jesus will save you.
Oh jeez.
We didn't watch the end of it. Like I mean, spooky shit started happening. Some of the stuff that they talked about that Ammons actually went through, like some of that was ending up in the movie.
And then they also kind of made it a vague little look as was it abuse or was it spirits? They didn't like make it. They just made that whole part kind of vague from what we gathered. For as far as we got into the movie.
Yeah. It was boring. I looked at you and I'm like, dude, let's just go record this.
Hated it.
Boring as fuck. You know what I thought was interesting too? Looking at the IMDb reviews of the Demon House documentary, there was a bunch of 10 out of 10. And it's like, this is the greatest ever. Zach is awesome. And in the trivia for that, it's like Zak Bagans paid people to do fake reviews. I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Because I mean, the documentary is good. It is basically like an hour and a half long episode of Ghost Adventures.
Yeah, but with a little bit more. I mean, there's a little bit more interviewing.
Well, it's just like he does any episode of even his first documentary on the Washoe.
But it seemed more of like just him instead of the whole team.
Right.
Because like usually it's the whole team and they're doing a lot of investigating.
You have to also realize this is the time when like Zach was having problems with Nick Groff. Nick was on this investigation.
I don't know. Him and Nick Groff were already split up long before this.
Before 2014, 15 when he was doing the investigation? I don't think so.
No? Okay.
Or at least that's not what they said on IMDb.com. Apparently this...
Because even on the Lost tapes, there was no Nick Groff.
No, there wasn't. But according to what I read, this was while Nick was still on the team and Nick was there. And that's why there's some of the lost footage is they had to cut stuff out because of Nick. But then that didn't make sense. Like you said, Nick wasn't in the lost footage. But the whole time I'm sitting there like, where's Aaron at?
Exactly. So he was... I don't think Aaron was there. Aaron was not there. But Billy
was there, and
Jay, they were there. But it wasn't like a regular episode where they were doing their investigation and interacting.
No, it was more
freaking
interviews.
Out about shit.
It was more interviews than anything.
It was a lot of interviewing and a lot of talking.
If you want to see investigation, that's where the lost tapes.
Yeah. And that was actually really cool. And I'm glad that we did watch that because I did see that come across YouTube and I did end up watching some of it, but I had to have been sleeping during it because I don't remember shit about it. And I didn't think it had anything. When I remember seeing of that, I was like, "Hell, shit! This isn't this series."
By the way, if you're browsing through Netflix and you see a movie that came out today or this weekend, 2024,
it's called The Deliverance.
The Deliverance with Glenn Close. Go ahead and just skip that shit.
Yeah.
Go back and watch The Nun 2. As much as I hated that movie, I would rather watch The Nun 2 before I watch this movie.
Yeah, at least The Nun 2 actually had some like jump scares in it. This didn't have jump scares. This was boring ass. Like, oh, what was that? Did something happen? I don't know. It sucked. It really sucked.
I was bad.
Yeah.
It was so bad.
But
I think we have a ghost with that dude from Stranger Things. Oh, by the way, this kid had that was one of the Stranger Things.
Oh yeah, the kid, Caleb something.
Yeah.
He played the older brother.
Like the comedy, we have a ghost with like what's
Marlon Wayans and David Harbour.
I thought it was the dude for Captain America, the Falcon. Anthony Mackie.
Yeah, Anthony Mackie.
Anthony Mackie and David Harbour.
Yeah.
That was scarier.
I don't know why I thought it was Marlon Wayans. But there's another movie, maybe.
Marlon Wayans has been everywhere. Man. No, just don't watch it. It's so bad. So bad.
Yeah, just skip it.
The actual story is way better. Like the documentary that Zak Bagans did is more entertaining than The Deliverance.
Yeah, I would much rather
just wait till next week and go see Speak No Evil with James McAvoy. That's on my list.
Okay, that one looks more suspenseful. That one
I like
looks,
it.
Yeah, that one looks kind of nuts. But all right, should we call that an episode?
We could. Oh, so before. Zach tore the house down. Obviously, yes, we've mentioned that. But before he did that, he dug up a bunch of the dirt and put it in buckets, and he kept the stairwell above the dirt intact. And if you want to go see that dirt and stairwell, it is now at his haunted museum in Vegas. We have seen it.
Yes, we have.
What feeling did you get from that stairwell?
I didn't get anything.
Neither did I. Not a damn thing.
Not a damn thing. I don't think there's anything attached to that.
But I think there is, and you and I cannot sense it. But I have talked to our friend Caden, who's been on the show twice. Caden, you get the bell.
He gets a ding.
You get the ding. And Brandy and I actually went to the museum together. She refused to go in that room. And Caden refuses to go into that room with the stairwell. So there, in my opinion, based on that knowledge, there is still shit with that stairwell. Okay. You saw me, like, the devil's rocking chair. I had a hard time. I couldn't even go in the room. I went in the room the first time I was there, but when I was with you, I couldn't go in that room with the devil's rocking chair.
Right.
And then you and I both just kind of waltzed into the room with the demon stairs, and we didn't feel shit. So, but when I got two, like, gifted mediums that refuse to go into that room with the stairs, because you walk in and it's just like a black little room, and then they lower like the partition. You can look through the glass of the stairs. Like I said, I've been in there and I didn't feel shit.
But the only room in that museum that really like gives off a lot of energy to me was the Dybbuk box room.
Oh, there's so much worse
like,
than the Dybbuk box.
And what's weird is like I'm not that big into Dybbuk boxes, but for some reason that one in that room was giving me a lot of energy.
I've seen two Dybbuk boxes now in my life. The one in Zak Bagans Museum and the one that someone sent my friend Jimmy. The one we kind of investigated the one that Jimmy had. She brought it to a convention here in Utah. That thing it almost seemed like Popo that we talked about last year was not as bad as that Dybbuk box, and Popo's a pretty bad entity. So at Zak Bagans Museum, though, I think the Devil's Rocking Chair is more haunted than the Dybbuk box. The Dybbuk box, I think, is just overhyped, in my opinion.
And I didn't think about it that much until I went there that one time with DVO, and it was just weird because I was picking it up as we walked in. The REM pod was going off in that room.
Investigate there, though. Yeah. I just have been on tours.
Yeah, and then like I was having the K2 was going crazy. The REM pod was going crazy as we were walking in. We were nowhere near it, but it was already going off before we entered. And then walking in there and seeing what could be setting it off, and nothing could be setting it off. And then getting near it and the K2 just going crazy.
So, yeah, if you want to go see the stairs, go to the Zak Bagans Museum. Just be warned. Like, we didn't feel anything, but that doesn't mean there is nothing, because two other gifted mediums that we know refuse to go into that room because of the energy that thing puts off.
Right.
So, it's going to affect everybody differently.
Faux show.
Not at all. But yeah, I think though, if you've seen the stairs, hey, we want to know about it.
Tell us what you felt if you saw.
You can hit us up on our email at evp.pod@gmail.com, or you can hit us up on Instagram or Facebook, evp.pod. And then you should also check out our affiliate link, buy some ghost hunting gear.
Get some ghost hunting stuff.
Do it.
All right, guys. Ghost Hunting Play Dad.
Peace out, butterflies.
This is the EVP Podcast.